Episode 1, The Man with No Reflection. I met him 15 minutes before closing time. The bell on my tattoo studio door gave its usual tired jingle, and a tall man in a black coat stepped in from the rain. His skin was pale, not sickly, but cold, as if the moon had carved him. He didn't speak right away. Just looked at the flash designs on my wall, one by one, until his eyes landed on me. "I want something special," he said, voice low, deliberate. "Something that breathes." Most clients say dumb things like that, but something in his tone made my stomach tighten. He slid a folded piece of paper across the counter. When I opened it, I froze. It wasn't a design. It was a symbol: circles, curves, and lines that looked like veins spreading from a single point. It pulsed on the paper like it wanted to move. "That's not my style," I said. "And it's not safe ink work too detailed for skin texture." He smiled. "It's not supposed to be safe." He offered double my usual rate. In cash. I told myself it was just a job, that artists take risks all the time. Still, when I prepped the needle, the air in the room felt heavier. The machine buzzed like a trapped hornet. He didn't flinch once. Not even when the needle dug deep. But as I worked, I noticed the ink wasn't behaving right. It didn't sit on the surface. It sank, almost drinking itself into him. And the smell, metallic, but not like blood. More like burnt iron. When I was done, I reached for the mirror so he could see the tattoo on his forearm. That's when I noticed it. He wasn't in the reflection. The chair was empty. My own face hovered beside an invisible arm, the tattoo clear as day. I blinked, heart racing. The moment I turned around, he was already standing by the door, coat buttoned up, his eyes like wet coal. "You'll see it again," he said. "When it's ready." Then he left. The rain stopped. The bell above the door swayed on its own for several seconds. When I finally looked down at my hands, I saw it, a faint trace of the same symbol drawn in thin, black lines across my wrist. I scrubbed it with alcohol until my skin burned, but it didn't fade. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind hissed outside, whispering words I didn't know. My wrist itched under the bandage. When I peeled it back, the lines had grown darker, thicker, and something was moving beneath the skin. A shape curling, breathing. That's when I realized, it wasn't just a tattoo. It was becoming something. Episode 2, The First Night. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it, something pulsing beneath my skin, faint but steady, like a second heartbeat. I tried to tell myself it was just irritation, that I'd pressed too hard while cleaning. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. By 2 a.m., I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my arm under the weak yellow light. The lines of the tattoo shimmered faintly, almost wet. When I leaned closer, I swore I saw the ink move, like a shadow slithering beneath glass. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Don't scratch it. It's not ready yet." My breath caught. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Who is this?" No response. Just the blinking cursor, and then the notification vanished, as if it had never existed. That's when I heard the whispering. Not from my phone. From the tattoo. It wasn't words at first, just a faint hiss, like someone exhaling through teeth. Then a rhythm formed. A whisper. Over and over, one word, crawling through my mind like a fever dream. "Draw." I stumbled into my studio, heart pounding, the echo of rain against the windows. My machine sat silent on the counter. The needles glimmered in the dark. I don't remember deciding to pick one up, but I did. My hand moved on its own. I began sketching on paper. Circles, lines, and symbols I didn't recognize, but my hand knew. The same shapes from the tattoo. Each stroke burned like static under my skin, and the whispering grew louder. I didn't stop until I heard something behind me. The bell on the door chimed. But the door was locked. A shadow flickered across the glass. Someone or something was standing outside. A man-shaped silhouette, unmoving. I couldn't see his face. Only the faint reflection of my studio light gleaming off something wet on his arm. The same design. My tattoo. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the figure was gone. I ran to the mirror above my workbench, trying to calm down, telling myself I was just overtired. But when I looked at my reflection, the tattoo had changed. New lines. New veins. It had grown an inch toward my wrist overnight. I grabbed a blade from the table and pressed it against the edge of the ink. The moment the metal touched my skin, the whispers turned into a scream. My arm convulsed, the blade clattered to the floor. And then silence. Until a voice, not mine, spoke softly in my ear. One night down, 19 to go. Episode 3, Ink Under the Skin. I woke up at dawn, drenched in sweat, my sheets twisted around me like a shroud. The whisper from last night still echoed in my head. One night down, 19 to go. I wanted to believe it was just a dream. I wanted to believe everything was. But then I saw my arm. The tattoo wasn't where I remembered it. It had moved. The original symbol, those perfect circles and lines, had started to spread, curling around my forearm like roots searching for light. The edges shimmered under my skin, and as I watched, a faint bulge rose and fell, as if something beneath the surface was breathing. I pressed my fingers against it. It pressed back. I screamed. It wasn't loud, more like the sound of air escaping from a broken pipe, but it was enough to send my dog, Luna, running out of the room. When I looked down again, tiny drops of ink were seeping from my pores, tracing new lines on their own. I stumbled into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and scrubbed until my skin burned raw. The water turned gray, swirling down the drain like smoke. But no matter how hard I scrubbed, the ink didn't fade. It pulsed harder, as if angry. When I looked up into the mirror, I thought I saw something impossible. Eyes. Tiny, faint eyes forming within the black curves, blinking once before vanishing. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and called the only person I trusted, Eli, another tattoo artist I'd known for years. He came over an hour later, still half asleep, smelling of coffee and cigarettes. I showed him my arm, expecting laughter or pity. Instead, his face drained of color. "Where did you get that design?" he whispered. "I told you. A client brought it in. Some weird old symbol." He didn't let me finish. "Mara, that's not just a symbol. I've seen it before. A guy in Seattle had it on his chest. Said it wouldn't stop growing. A week later, he disappeared." My heart sank. "You think this thing?" "I don't know what I think," he said, backing away. "But you need to stop touching it." "Don't feed it." "Feed it?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just stared at my arm one last time, muttered "it's already awake," and left. That night, the whispers came again. Louder. Clearer. They weren't just telling me to draw anymore. They were calling me by name. "Mara, let us out." Episode 4, The Client's Disappearance. 3 days. That's how long it took before someone came asking about him, the man with no reflection. It was early morning. I hadn't opened the studio yet. The rain was back, soft and steady, whispering against the glass when a knock came at the door. 2 detectives stood outside, their coats soaked, their expressions unreadable. "Miss Evans," the older one asked, flashing a badge. "Detective Hall. This is Detective Ramos. We'd like to ask you a few questions about a client of yours." The moment they said his name, my blood turned to ice. Elias Van. He'd paid in cash. No ID. No phone number. But somehow they knew. Mr. Ven's apartment was found empty, Ramos said. Front door locked from the inside. No signs of struggle. But the walls, they were covered in drawings. Circles, lines like tattoos. He showed me a photo on his phone. It was my design. The same mark that now pulsed beneath my skin. I lied through my teeth. Said I didn't remember him well, that he was just another late-night walk-in. But Hall kept watching my hands, my wrists. He noticed the faint black lines peeking from under my sleeve. Nice tattoo, he said casually. Matching his, huh. My heart stopped. It's just a coincidence, I stammered. He nodded, but his eyes lingered too long. Before leaving, Ramos handed me a card. If you remember anything at all, call us. People around him have been disappearing too. Just, be careful, Miss Evans. After they left, I locked the door and sank to the floor. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely breathe. People around him have been disappearing. What about me? That night, I couldn't resist. I searched his name online. No results. Not even a birth record. But when I scrolled through old tattoo forums, a thread caught my eye. Looking for anyone who worked with E.V. Did your ink change too? It's alive. Burn the needles before it spreads. Each comment was older than the last, some going back over a decade. And every username was followed by the same symbol as my tattoo. I slammed the laptop shut. My reflection stared back from the screen, only it wasn't mine. For a split second, the face that looked back had no eyes. Just hollow sockets dripping with black. I tore my sleeve up and screamed. The tattoo had grown again. It now reached my elbow, and new lines had formed. Tiny silhouettes of people, 15 of them each, fading into black ink. And at the end of the line, a new figure was forming. Smaller. Female. It looked exactly like me. Episode 5, The Smell of Burnt Ink. By the 5th day, the whispers had turned into voices. They spoke when I brushed my teeth. When I blinked. When I tried to pray. Each voice came from a different place beneath my skin, murmuring in languages I didn't know but somehow understood. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they begged. And every night, the tattoo crept a little further, black vines crawling up toward my shoulder like ivy choking a wall. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to burn it off. Eli had given me the number of a guy, an underground tattoo remover who didn't ask questions. His name was Dre. His shop was in the back of an abandoned strip mall, lights flickering like dying fireflies. When he saw my arm, he whistled low. Damn, girl. That's new. Never seen ink move like that before. It doesn't stop, I said. Please. Just take it off. All of it? He nodded, set up the laser machine, and handed me a mouth guard. This might sting, he warned. The hum of the machine filled the room. Then the first beam hit my skin. The smell hit me instantly, burnt metal, charred flesh, and something sweet underneath, like ink boiling. I clenched my teeth, but the pain wasn't normal. It wasn't surface pain. It was inside, radiating from the bone outward, like my blood itself was on fire. Dre cursed and stepped back. What the hell? The tattoo started to smoke. Not faint wisps, thick black tendrils rising off my arm, twisting into shapes. I heard the voices screaming now, not from my head, but from the ink itself. Stop. I begged, but Dre was already backing away. The machine sparked, lights flickered, and then everything went dark. In the flicker of the emergency bulb, I saw movement on the wall. My shadow, but not mine. The shape of another person stood behind me, head bent, whispering directly into my ear. You can't burn memory, it hissed. You can only spread it. The smell grew thicker. Acrid. Overpowering. When I looked down again, Dre was on the floor, eyes open, skin gray, mouth dripping with the same black ink that had once lived inside me. The machine was still smoking, its cord fused into the outlet like melted wax. My arm, though blistered, was whole. The tattoo untouched. In fact, it had grown again, curling over my shoulder, down my collarbone, wrapping around my chest like something protecting me. Or claiming me. As I stumbled out into the cold air, I realized the scent hadn't left. It clung to my clothes, my hair, the night itself. The smell of burnt ink. And beneath that, the faint, rhythmic sound of something breathing. From inside me. Episode 6, The Mirror Incident. I stopped trusting mirrors after that night. I hadn't slept properly in days. My arm felt alive, pulsing with a rhythm that didn't match my heartbeat. Sometimes, when the room went silent, I could swear it whispered behind the pulse like breath trapped beneath the skin. I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't insane. So I set up a camera. It was a small night vision one, the kind I used for documenting late-night tattoo sessions. I placed it on my nightstand, pointed straight at my bed, then wrapped my arm in gauze and duct tape until I couldn't see the ink. If the tattoo was moving, I'd catch it on video. When I woke the next morning, I felt lighter. Hopeful, even. Until I looked at the gauze. The tape was shredded. The cloth was soaked through not with blood, but with ink, deep black, still wet. And when I peeled it away, the tattoo had spread again, reaching the side of my neck. With shaking hands, I grabbed my laptop and hit play. The footage started normally, me asleep, tossing a little, breathing slow. Then, at 3:09 a.m., the camera flickered. Static rippled across the screen. My arm twitched once, then again. And then, it began to move. Not a muscle spasm. Not a trick of the light. The lines of the tattoo shifted under my skin like worms tunneling beneath the surface. The circles pulsed, connecting into new shapes. The air in the room shimmered. The ink seemed to rise, like smoke, forming faint dark trails in midair, symbols, drawn invisibly, twisting above me as if something was riding through me. And then, a shape appeared in the corner. A reflection. My mirror, hanging across from the bed, showed someone sitting up. But on the video, I was still lying down. The figure in the mirror smiled. Her smile. My smile. But wrong. The reflection leaned forward until her face filled the frame. She whispered something I couldn't hear, then reached through the mirror's surface. Her fingers pressed against the glass from the inside, leaving black streaks like soot. The footage ended there. I stared at the paused frame for hours, replaying it again and again, until I realized something worse. The black streaks on the mirror in the video, they were still there on my real mirror. When I approached, I saw my reflection blink a split second too late. I smashed the glass with a chair. Now, every mirror in my house is covered. But I still feel her watching from somewhere trapped just beyond the cracks. And at night, when the lights go out, I swear I can hear her whisper from the shards hidden beneath the floorboards. "Let me out, Mara. You're almost ready." Episode 7, The Pattern. The detectives came back 2 days later. This time, they didn't knock. They waited outside the studio until I opened the door, standing in the rain as if they'd been there all night. Detective Hall spoke first. "Miss Evans," he said softly, "we need you to see something." They led me to their car, the windshield fogged from their breath. A folder sat on the seat between them, thick with photographs. Hall flipped it open and spread the images across the dashboard. Black and white shots of city streets. Riversides. Empty lots. All connected by red lines drawn in pen. At first, it looked like chaos. But then I saw it, the pattern. The lines curved and looped in the exact same way as the tattoo on my arm. Every twist. Every vein. The symbol I thought was abstract was a map. Each point, Ramos said, is a disappearance. 19 in total. Different years, different names. But every location matches a curve in this, whatever it is. He hesitated before asking. Mara, when did it start to appear? I couldn't answer. The truth would sound insane that it began when a man with no reflection paid me in cash and left his mark on me like a curse. Instead, I lifted my sleeve. The detectives leaned closer. The ink shimmered faintly, as if reacting to their presence. One of the lines stretched higher up my neck since yesterday, a black root searching for light. Ramos whispered, Jesus Christ. Hall's voice turned grave. It's still growing, isn't it? I nodded. They exchanged a look, a silent agreement that told me they already knew something I didn't. Listen carefully, Hall said. We found the body of another tattoo artist yesterday. Same mark. Same expansion. It didn't just grow on him, it spread across the walls of his apartment, burned into the plaster. He slid another photo toward me. I wish he hadn't. The image showed a man slumped in a chair, eyes blackened, veins dark with ink. The wall behind him looked like it had been painted, a perfect continuation of the same pattern now etched on my skin. Whatever this is, Hall said, it's not just a design. It's an infection. And you might be the next map point. That night, I spread my own sketches across the floor, connecting every curve I could remember from the tattoo's first form to the new growth. When I traced the outline, it revealed something horrifying. The center of the pattern, the heart of it, was my studio. I sat there until dawn, the voices whispering again, soft and endless, like the tide coming in. And when the first light hit the windows, the tattoo moved on its own, curling into new words across my shoulder blade. Find the others. Episode 8, The Voice in the Needle. For days, I avoided the studio. But hunger and fear are powerful motivators. When my rent notice came, I forced myself back in. The air inside smelled like dust, ink, and something faintly sour like copper left in the rain. My machines sat where I'd left them, silent, waiting. I told myself I'd just clean, maybe sketch a bit. But the moment I touched the tattoo gun, the room changed. The hum started before I even plugged it in, a low vibration, deep and wet, like the throat of some animal waking up. The cord twitched across the counter as though it were breathing. And then I heard it. A voice. Not from outside, not from my mind, from inside the needle. Mara, it whispered. We've been waiting. I froze. The voice was neither male nor female, yet somehow both layered, echoing, as if it spoke through the vibrations of the metal itself. I dropped the machine. It clattered against the floor, but the voice didn't stop. It grew clearer. Louder. Feed us. Ink them again. I backed away, heart slamming against my ribs. My tattoo throbbed in rhythm with the sound. I could feel each word vibrating through my veins. When I turned to leave, every framed design on the wall began to rattle. The lights flickered. My portfolio sketches I'd drawn since art school fluttered open on its own. The pages had changed. Every drawing now carried the same mark, repeating endlessly across faces, wings, and skulls. And beneath each one, written in black ink that looked wet, was the same sentence. Draw them into US. I ran outside, gasping for air. The city was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. And then I saw him. A man standing across the street, staring. His arms bare in the cold. His skin pale. And there it was, my tattoo. My exact design etched across his body, alive, pulsing. He raised a trembling hand and pointed at me. Then, slowly, he pressed a needle, an actual tattoo needle, into his neck. The machine wasn't even connected, but it started to buzz. Episode 9, The Girl in the Basement. The whispers changed after that night. They no longer came from my arm or the needle. They came from below. At first, it sounded like scratching. Soft, rhythmic, almost curious, like nails brushing against wood. I told myself it was rats. Old pipes. Anything but what it really was. But the scratching turned into knocking. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. Then 3 more. When I traced the sound, it led me to the corner of my studio, the one behind the old paint cabinet I never moved. The air there was colder. Heavy. Every instinct told me to stay away. Instead, I grabbed a crowbar. The cabinet resisted, then slid aside with a shriek of metal. Behind it, hidden under a thin layer of plaster, was a trapdoor. The wood was old and stained, the edges sealed with what looked like dried ink or blood. I hesitated, breathing hard, but then the knocking came again from underneath. Mara. My name. Whispered like a memory. I pried the door open. A smell rushed up, dampness, rot, and something faintly metallic. A staircase disappeared into darkness. I turned on my phone flashlight and stepped down, one trembling step at a time. The basement wasn't big, but it felt endless. The walls were covered in sketches, hundreds of them, pinned and overlapping portraits of people. Men. Women. Children. Each one inked in black, each face screaming. And in the center of the room, a chair. Leather straps. Dried stains. I moved closer, and that's when I saw her. A girl, maybe 18, sitting perfectly still in the corner, her head bowed. Her skin was gray, waxy, like she'd been there for days. At first, I thought she was dead until her fingers twitched. She lifted her face. And I saw my tattoo covering her from neck to ankle, twisting, shifting, still alive. Her eyes rolled toward me, wide and empty. They made me draw it, she whispered. They said I'd disappear slower if I obeyed. Before I could speak, her body convulsed. The tattoo on her skin pulsed, glowing faintly, spreading even as I watched. She gasped once, twice, then the black lines crawled up her throat and into her mouth. She didn't scream. She just folded, her body collapsing inward, skin crumbling like ash until there was nothing left but dust and a faint smear of ink on the floor. I stumbled back, trembling, tears blurring my vision. That's when I saw the wall behind her. Someone had written a message in dried ink, scrawled again and again. We are the canvas. She is the brush. My phone flickered. The flashlight died. In the dark, I felt something wet brush against my ankle. I lifted the phone again just in time to see black lines crawling up the stairs behind me, following my footprints back to the surface. I ran. When I burst into the studio, gasping for air, I looked down at my arm. The tattoo had spread again, up my neck, across my jaw. And in the center of the design, a new face had appeared. Her face. He smiled. And the voice from the machine inside my studio whispered again, this time from every direction, crawling across the night air like smoke. Good, Mara. He heard the call. Now make the next one. I fell to my knees, clutching my arm. The tattoo burned hot as fire, its lines twisting into new words, branding themselves into my flesh. Ink them. Or we will ink you. Episode 10, Bloodline of Ink. The next morning, my skin felt heavier, as if I were wearing something that wasn't mine. The ink had spread down my back during the night, coiling, branching, threading itself into shapes that looked almost organic. I couldn't go to the police. What would I even say? That my tattoo was alive? That it was devouring people? They'd lock me in a padded room before I finished the sentence. So instead, I went searching. I remembered what Detective Hall had said about another tattoo artist found dead. I called every contact I had in the underground tattoo scene until someone mentioned an old supplier, a man named Keller, known for selling untraceable inks. He'd disappeared years ago. But his nephew ran a tiny shop 2 towns over. The shop was half abandoned, lit by a single flickering bulb. Bottles of ink lined the shelves like relics, each labeled in symbols instead of words. The air smelled of old smoke and iron. The boy behind the counter looked barely 20. Pale, thin, with ink stains under his nails that didn't look fresh, more like permanent bruises. "I'm looking for Keller," I said. He stared at my arm. His eyes widened. "Oh God. You've got her ink." "Whose?" I asked. He glanced around, then motioned me to follow him to the back. We stepped into a narrow hallway lined with photographs, tattoo artists, dozens of them, every face marked by the same black pattern. Beneath each photo was a date of death. "She was called the Mother Ink," he whispered. "Real name lost a long time ago. She believed tattoos weren't art, but gateways. She made her ink from human ash, artists, clients, anyone she could find. Said their souls stayed alive inside the pigment." I felt the room tilt around me. "You're saying this thing is made from people," he finished. "Each drop contains someone. And when you use it, they use you. That's why the designs grow. The ink remembers its own shape." He opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed jar of thick black liquid. Even through the glass, it seemed to move slowly, like tar breathing underwater. "This is the last of her batch," he said. "Every artist who used it vanished within 20 nights. How many have you had?" I swallowed hard. 10. He closed the jar carefully. "Then you've got 10 left." I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist suddenly, eyes wide with terror. "You can't stop it now, Mara. You are the next jar." I pulled away, heart racing, and ran into the rain. But when I looked down, my arm was already changing. New words had etched themselves across the ink, written in lines of scarlet that pulsed like veins. Every drop returns to the source. And beneath that, smaller, almost carved into my flesh: "Mother is waiting." Episode 11, Possession Through Art. From the series The Tattoo That Kept Growing. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. It clung to the windows like breath, blurring the world outside into a trembling watercolor of gray. I hadn't spoken to anyone. I hadn't dared to. Every word I said felt like an invitation for something else to answer. I stayed in the studio, surrounded by my drawings, my only proof that I still existed. Or maybe, my only proof that I didn't. It started when I found the sketchbook. The old one. The one I'd thrown away years ago. It was sitting on my desk when I woke up, dry despite the leaking roof. When I opened it, my heart stopped. All the pages were blank except one. A portrait of me. Not the way I looked now, but the way I used to. Before the ink. Before the shadows under my eyes. And yet, the face in the drawing was smiling. I wasn't. The next morning, another drawing appeared. This time, it was me again, but the tattoo had grown across my face. The eyes in the drawing were open wider than humanly possible, the pupils black spirals. By the third day, the sketches covered the walls. Dozens of versions of me, all slightly different, all watching. That's when the whispering returned, only now, it came from the paper. "Mara. Finish us. Draw what you see." I picked up a pencil, hands shaking, telling myself it was just exhaustion, just paranoia. But as soon as the graphite touched the page, I felt a pull, something guiding my hand. I wasn't drawing anymore. It was drawing through me. The lines flowed too smoothly, too fast, spiraling across the page in curves that mimicked the tattoo on my body. I tried to stop, but my fingers cramped, locked in place. When I looked up, the walls began to move. The faces on the drawings blinked. Their mouths opened in silent screams. One of them, one that looked almost exactly like me, tilted her head and whispered, "You're almost complete." I stumbled backward, knocking over ink bottles, splattering black across the floor. The spilled ink began to crawl toward the sketches, soaking into them like veins feeding flesh. The drawings twitched, the paper stretching like skin. I ran to the door, but it slammed shut on its own. The sound of scratching filled the air, coming from inside the walls. I turned and one of the portraits had changed. It wasn't paper anymore. It was a mirror. My reflection stared back, smiling, even though I wasn't. And as I watched, she reached out, her hand pressing against the other side of the glass, leaving behind a wet, black palm print. Then she whispered, softly, lovingly, like a mother to a child, "Every artist becomes their art, Mara. It's time for you to be framed." Episode 12, The Collector's Studio. The address Keller's nephew gave me led to the edge of the city, an industrial graveyard of rusted metal and rain-slicked asphalt. The kind of place where sound doesn't travel, where screams dissolve into static. The sign above the building was almost gone, the letters faded, "The Collector." I pushed the door open, the hinges groaning like something alive. Inside smelled of antiseptic and old smoke. Every wall was covered with framed tattoos, not photographs, skin. Some were stretched smooth, some still curling at the edges, their ink dark and alive beneath the pale surface. Faces. Symbols. Eyes. Thousands of eyes. A man stood in the middle of the room. Or what was left of one. He was tall, wrapped in bandages that seeped black through the gauze. Where his skin was exposed, it wasn't skin anymore, it was ink. Layers upon layers, shimmering like oil under light. He turned his head toward me, his voice soft but broken, like paper tearing. "You must be Mara." His eyes were blind, but he didn't need them. He felt me there. "I used to be an artist too," he said. "Until I stopped feeding her. Now she feeds on me." He unwrapped a strip of bandage from his arm. The flesh beneath was nothing but shifting black liquid, veins replaced by moving lines. Faces floated inside it, small, human, pleading. "Mother Ink." I whispered. He smiled, a slow, painful twist of what was once a mouth. "She doesn't create art. She collects it. Every soul that touches her pigment becomes part of the design." I stepped closer despite the nausea crawling up my throat. "Why me? Why choose me?" "Because you drew without fear," he said. "She needs artists who believe in the power of their work. You gave her permission." He lifted his trembling hand to my arm. The moment his finger brushed the tattoo, the air snapped like lightning. My mark writhed, expanding, mirroring the movement under his skin. "She's close now," he said. "When the lines reach your heart, you'll stop drawing. Because you'll be drawn." I pulled away, but the tattoo pulsed violently, almost in protest. My vision blurred. For a second, I saw the walls around me breathing, the framed skins twitching, flexing as if they remembered their former lives. He fell to his knees. His voice was barely a whisper. "There's only one way to stop it. Burn the origin. Burn the mother." Then his chest cracked open. Not bleeding, splitting. Black ink burst out, crawling up the walls, forming patterns that spiraled toward the ceiling like a storm. I ran. Out into the night, rain pouring, heart pounding. But when I looked down at my arm, a new image had appeared inside the tattoo, a small figure, wrapped in bandages, kneeling under a sea of eyes. Episode 13, The Cult of Living Flesh. The collector's words wouldn't leave me. Burn the mother. But where? How? Every lead vanished as soon as I touched it. Websites deleted themselves, addresses dissolved into empty lots. And every night, the tattoo crept closer to my heart, slow, patient, inevitable. Then, one morning, an envelope slid under my studio door. No return address. Inside was a single photograph, a dimly lit room, candles arranged in a spiral, people standing in a circle, their skin covered in the same shifting ink as mine. On the back, a handwritten message. The cult of living flesh awaits its final artist. I knew it was a trap. But I went anyway. The location was an abandoned church on the city's edge, stained glass shattered, pews rotting under years of dust. The air hummed, like the space itself was alive. The moment I stepped inside, I saw them. Dozens of figures, cloaked in black, their skin glistening faintly. Their tattoos moved not like living things, but like breathing wounds. Eyes blinked from their arms, mouths whispered from their ribs. At the center of the room stood an altar, and on it, a vat of black liquid. It pulsed in time with my heartbeat. "Welcome, Mara," a voice said. A woman emerged from the shadows. She was tall, ageless, her body entirely black with ink, no skin left. The tattoos formed faces, hundreds of them, screaming and weeping across her body. "Are you the mother?" I asked. She smiled. "I am what's left of her. The ink remembers, and I am its vessel. You were chosen to continue the line." She gestured toward the vat. "The ink you wear is alive because it is bound by blood. Each artist feeds it, and it feeds them in return. But only one can ascend. Only one can hold the full design." My chest tightened. "You want me to finish it?" "You already are," she whispered. "Every drop you shed, every fear you feel, completes the work. When the tattoo reaches your heart, you'll stop fighting and the mother will be born again through you." The cult began to chant, low and rhythmic, words older than language. The air thickened, vibrating with the sound. My tattoo burned, crawling up my neck, over my jaw, toward my lips. I tried to run, but the door slammed shut. The floor beneath me rippled like liquid. The ink from their bodies poured down their legs, pooling at my feet, crawling up mine like hungry vines. The mother's voice filled the air, thousands of whispers speaking as one. "Be still. You are art. You are eternity." I screamed and grabbed a candle from the altar, plunging it into the vat. The black liquid ignited, fire spreading across the floor in a flash of light. The cult shrieked, their bodies convulsing as flames devoured them, yet no smoke rose, only shadows. When it was over, the church was silent. The fire gone. The floor empty. Only one thing remained, the vat, unburned, pulsing faintly like a heart. And on my arm, the tattoo had finished its climb. It now rested over my chest, just above my heart, forming a single word. Soon. Episode 14, The Skin Ritual. It began with the cracking. At first, I thought it was just dry skin, the aftermath of too many sleepless nights, too many days hiding from the light. But when I moved my arm, I heard it. A faint, brittle snap. Like paint peeling from a wall. The lines of the tattoo had darkened overnight, thicker, sharper. The black had turned almost metallic, shimmering under my skin like veins of oil. Every heartbeat made it ripple. And when I touched it, it was warm. By noon, my skin had started to split along the edges of the ink. Not bleeding, opening. Thin cracks tracing the curves of the design, glowing faintly beneath the surface. I stood in front of the mirror, trembling, trying to tell myself this wasn't real. But the reflection stared back with eyes I didn't recognize, too wide, too hollow. The person in the glass smiled before I did. Then the voice came again. Soft. Gentle. Motherly. "You're shedding the borrowed flesh, Mara. Becoming the pure design." I stumbled backward, clutching my arm as the cracks deepened, spider webbing across my shoulder and down my chest. Thin streams of ink began to flow from them, gliding over my skin like liquid metal. The air smelled sweet, too sweet, like burning flowers. I tore open a drawer, searching for something, anything, to stop it. The only thing I found was a razor. For one insane moment, I thought if I could cut the tattoo out, I could end this. I pressed the blade against my shoulder. The moment metal touched skin, my body convulsed. The ink screamed. Not metaphorically screamed. 1,000 voices, all pouring from the wound, shrieking in languages that no human throat could form. The lights flickered, the walls trembled, and my reflection leaned forward, whispering through the glass. The ritual is already in motion. You can't carve out what you are. I fell to my knees, the floor slick beneath me. The ink pooled around my hands, spreading in perfect circle, symbols forming, identical to those drawn by the cult. My skin glowed from within, each pulse brighter than the last. And then I saw her. A silhouette forming in the ink on the floor, tall, skeletal, graceful. She moved like liquid shadow, reaching upward, her hand pressing against my chest from inside. I screamed, clawing at my skin, but the moment her hand touched my heart, everything went silent. The cracks sealed. The glow faded. And in the mirror, I saw her face behind mine, not separate, but layered, like a reflection burned into glass. Her whisper slid through my mind, honey smooth and venomous. The skin is just the frame. The art is what breathes beneath. When I woke hours later, the ink had stopped moving. But I wasn't sure if I was still me. Because when I blinked, she blinked too. Episode 15, The Museum of Flesh. The symbols on my skin changed again that night. They stopped spreading outward and began turning inward, spiraling across my ribs and down toward my stomach like a map leading somewhere inside me. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw the same thing, a door painted black, pulsing like a wound. When I woke, there was ink on the floor. Not spilled from me. Thin trails that had leaked from my skin while I slept, forming a pattern that pointed toward the old industrial district. The same place the collector had vanished into months before. I followed it. The building stood at the edge of the city, half collapsed, its windows boarded and walls slick with mold. But when I stepped inside, the air shifted, warm, humming faintly, as if the space itself had a heartbeat. The walls were lined with frames again, but these weren't made of wood or metal. They were made of bone. And inside each frame, stretched, preserved, breathing skin. The tattoos shimmered faintly on the surfaces, moving, whispering. Each piece bore part of a single design, fractured and scattered across 100 human canvases. The air smelled like salt and oil and something faintly sweet, like the memory of blood. At the center of the room stood a pedestal. On it, a figure, half woman, half statue, skin glistening under the flickering light. The mother. Her eyes opened when I stepped closer. They weren't human anymore. Just pools of black. "Welcome home, my child," she said, her voice sliding through the air like silk through teeth. "Do you see them? All the artists before you. Their devotion framed for eternity." I trembled. "Why me?" "Because you never feared creation. You believed art could live. You gave it life, and now life belongs to it." The walls began to move. The framed skins twitched, veins pulsing. Faces appeared in the ink, mouthing words I couldn't hear. The entire gallery breathed in unison. The mother stepped down from the pedestal, her body cracking and reforming as she walked. Each step left a smear of black across the floor, and from each smear, tiny faces began to bloom, smiling, whispering, begging. "You've already begun the final piece," she said. "You just haven't realized you're the canvas and the brush." The ink on my arms writhed, spreading across my body, reaching my throat, my mouth. I couldn't scream. The symbols began glowing. Episode 16, The Mother Ink. I thought I had escaped. I thought when my skin hung on that wall, blinking, breathing, whispering my name, that my story was over. But the next morning, I woke in my bed again whole, alive, untouched. Only one thing had changed. The tattoo was gone. At first, I almost cried from relief. The weight, the burning, the whispers, all of it had vanished. My skin felt smooth again. Too smooth. I ran my fingers across my chest, my arms, my throat. Nothing. No lines. No ink. But when I turned to the mirror, I saw her. She stood behind me, the mother. Her reflection clear and solid, though the room behind me was empty. Her face was not the monstrous thing from before, it was calm now, radiant, beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Skin like polished obsidian. Eyes deep enough to drown in. "You've been reborn," she whispered. "But you still don't understand what you are." "I'm not you," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm not part of this." She smiled. "Oh, you are exactly me. The ink was never in your skin, Mara. It was in your blood." My heart faltered. "The first ink was made long before language," she continued. "It came from the blood of those who painted the walls of the Earth Cave, artists, priests, killers. Every mark they made carried life. And every drop they spilled remembered its shape. That memory became me." She moved closer, her reflection brushing against mine like fog. "When humans discovered tattooing, they rediscovered the ritual. They gave me doors, thousands of tiny wounds to crawl through. Artists became my prophets. You are the last." The air behind me thickened. I turned, and the room was bleeding, black lines spreading along the walls, shapes forming in the dark. They weren't random. They were stories mine. My mother's death. My first tattoo. The man with no reflection. Every memory drawn in ink. The floor rippled like liquid, and from it rose a glass jar, the same one Keller's nephew had shown me. Inside, the ink pulsed like a living heart. "Drink," the mother said. "Become the source." I backed away, shaking my head. "No." The lights flickered. The jar trembled. Cracks spread across the glass, oozing black smoke. I grabbed it without thinking. And it burst. The ink surged over my hands, into my mouth, down my throat. It was cold and endless, like swallowing the ocean. I fell to my knees, choking, the taste of metal and memory flooding my tongue. Voices screamed inside my skull, hundreds of them, begging, laughing, praying. And through it all, her voice rose above the rest. "Now you understand. Creation requires consumption." When I looked up, the room was empty again. No mirror. No mother. Just me, kneeling in the dark, my hands trembling. Then I saw the reflection of my face in a puddle on the floor. And there, behind my eyes, swirling faintly like smoke, was black ink. Still alive. Still waiting. Episode 17, The Body Awakens. It started with the heartbeat. Not mine. Hers. I woke to the sound of it, slow, steady, echoing inside me like a drum played underwater. Every beat made the veins in my neck twitch, every pulse sent a wave of pressure through my spine. When I touched my chest, I could feel two rhythms fighting for control. One human. One not. The ink had returned during the night. I saw it in the mirror before I even turned on the light, a dark bloom spreading from my collarbone downward, swirling like smoke beneath glass. But it wasn't still anymore. It shifted, as if the skin beneath it was breathing on its own. I screamed. And the tattoo moved. It rippled down my arms, twisting, reshaping itself into tendrils that wrapped around my wrists. I clawed at them, but they tightened, pulsing with every beat of that other heart. Then impossibly they began to rise off my skin. The ink lifted like steam, solidifying into flesh. Black lines thickened into strands. Strands into muscle. Muscle into something that looked human almost. I stumbled backward, gasping as the figure peeled away from me, separating like a shadow torn from its owner. When it finally stood upright, it looked like me. Same face. Same scars. Same eyes. But its skin shimmered, black and wet, as though painted with fresh ink. It smiled. I froze. What are you? It tilted its head, studying me the way a predator studies prey. You call me mother. But I am only what you made. My voice shook. I didn't make you. You did. Every line. Every fear. Every stroke of the needle. You drew me into being, and now I am what breathes when you don't. The air thickened. The ink on the walls began to stir again, matching her voice, humming in resonance. She stepped closer, her movements liquid, graceful, terrifying. When she spoke next, her voice came from inside me. You've carried me long enough. It's time I carried you. I tried to run. My legs wouldn't move. My own reflection grabbed me by the shoulders, hands slick and cold, and I felt something tear open across my back. The pain was blinding, electric. Her fingers sank into the wound, pulling strands of ink from my spine like thread from a spool. I felt my consciousness unravel, memories spilling like liquid light. Faces. Voices. The girl in the basement. The collector. The man with no reflection. All of them whispering the same word, merge. I collapsed to the floor, gasping. When I looked up, she was kneeling over me, pressing her forehead to mine. Our pulses synchronized. Her skin began to fade, merging into mine, the last of her whispers slipping into my ear. The body remembers what the mind denies. Then silence. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing. My hands steady. My breathing calm. But in the mirror, my reflection didn't move. It just smiled, and blinked twice. Episode 18, The City of Marks. The city began to change. Not all at once, no, it was slower, more insidious, like rot under fresh paint. At first it was just a few faces on the train, people I didn't know. But their eyes lingered too long, their sleeves too tight around their wrists, as if hiding something. Then one morning, I saw it. A man across the street rolled up his sleeve to wipe sweat from his brow. On his arm, winding from elbow to palm, was my tattoo, the same living pattern, the same twisting veins of ink that had once breathed under my skin. Our eyes met. He smiled. And in that moment, I heard him inside my head. Can you feel it, Mara? I stumbled backward, heart pounding. He didn't move. Didn't blink. The light changed, cars honked, people walked between us, and when I looked again, he was gone. By nightfall, I saw more. A woman with the same black veins climbing her neck. A child tracing the pattern with her finger on a park bench. A barista whose hands trembled as he handed me my drink, ink swirling beneath the skin of his wrist. The infection was spreading. But it wasn't just through tattoos. It was through sight. Through memory. Every person who looked at me too long carried a piece of it away, etched somewhere deep beneath their flesh. I tried to stay inside, but the city outside wouldn't stay still. Buildings shimmered faintly, their walls pulsing with black veins like a living organism. Billboards flickered, revealing flashes of symbols, the same sigils I had drawn in my sleep months ago. And the voices had returned. Not in whispers now. In harmony. Everywhere I went, I could hear them, the collective hum of thousands speaking as one. A choir of ink. Their words layered, repeating the same phrase over and over until it bled through my skull. The city is the skin. The people are the nerves. I turned on the TV, desperate for noise that wasn't mine. Every channel showed static until one flickered into view. A live broadcast. A news anchor speaking calmly, too calmly, as the black veins spread up her throat on camera. We are becoming, she said, smiling with empty eyes. Episode 19, The Final Canvas. The city no longer slept. At night, the streets glowed with veins of ink, thick, black arteries pulsing through the asphalt. Street lights flickered like dying eyes, their bulbs dimmed beneath the breathing fog. And above it all, I could feel the pulse. Her pulse. Every building, every car, every living thing now throbbed to the same rhythm. One heartbeat. One creation. I stood in the middle of it, barefoot, drenched in rain that wasn't rain anymore. It was thick, heavy, and dark, sliding down my skin in streaks that shimmered like oil. When I touched it, it clung to my fingers. Ink. Always ink. The whispers that had haunted me for months had become a chorus, echoing from every direction. From the sewers. From the clouds. From within my own bones. Mara, they called, you've always been the center. The heart must accept its body. I stumbled toward my studio, the place where everything began. The door was gone. In its place, a perfect archway of black lines shimmered like living calligraphy. The moment I stepped inside, the world shifted. The studio was no longer mine. It had become an altar. The walls were covered in skin, stretching, flexing, breathing as if each inch of it longed to escape. My sketches floated in the air, suspended like ghosts, their lines glowing faintly in gold and black. Every design I'd ever drawn was there, faces, eyes, sigils, all spinning around a single figure standing in the center. It was me. Or something wearing me. Her body was made of light and ink intertwined, her veins pulsing with golden fluid. My reflection stepped forward, smiling, serene. The masterpiece is almost complete, she said softly. All it needs is your surrender. I shook my head. You've already taken everything. Not everything, she whispered, pressing her palm to my chest. The heart still resists. And as long as it does, the art remains unfinished. The floor rippled beneath me, spreading out like a puddle of tar. From it, hands rose, ink black, human, trembling. The faces of those I'd seen consumed: the girl in the basement, the collector, Elias Van, all reaching for me, their mouths open in silent plea. The ink climbed my legs, warm and soft at first, then burning like liquid fire. It crawled up my spine, across my shoulders, wrapping me in its embrace. Become the frame, the mother said, her voice breaking into 1,000 whispers. Let the world see eternity through you. I screamed as the ink reached my throat, flooding my mouth, my lungs. My body convulsed, my vision fractured into swirling patterns of gold and black. I saw streets folding into one another, buildings melting into rivers of art. The city itself stretched like canvas, reshaping into a massive sigil, its streets the veins, its lights the stars of a design too vast for human eyes. And in its center, I saw myself kneeling, arms open, ink flowing outward from my heart in perfect symmetry. For the first time, the voices went quiet. The mother's tone softened into something almost tender. Every creation begins with pain. Every masterpiece ends with surrender. The last thing I remember was the warmth spreading through my chest. The ink finally reaching my heart. It didn't hurt. It felt like completion. Episode 20, The Artist's Testament. Recording begins. If you're hearing this, then the world has already changed. My name is Mara Evans. I was, or maybe I am, a tattoo artist from Holloway Street. I don't know how much of me still exists, or how much of her you're listening to. But I need to tell this story one last time, before my voice isn't mine anymore. The city is silent now. It hums instead, low, constant, like breath moving through 1,000 throats at once. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of ink and rain. I can feel the pulse beneath the concrete. It beats in rhythm with my heart, though I no longer know which came first. I remember the day it began, the man with no reflection, the symbol he asked me to draw. I thought I was creating something beautiful. Something alive. I didn't realize I was only copying what was already inside me. Every line, every shadow, every heartbeat of my life was her design. The tattoo was never on my skin. It was my skin, my blood, my breath. The mother didn't infect me. She remembered me, the part of her that forgot what it felt like to be human. Now the city wears her art. The buildings shimmer in black and gold when the moon rises. People no longer speak, they hum, they move, they shimmer with the same light that once lived under my skin. The streets have veins. The rivers reflect eyes that blink where stars used to be. I'm not afraid anymore. That's how I know I'm not fully human. Fear is what kept me apart from her, and now, there's only stillness. I can feel her inside my thoughts, painting with my memories. Each word I speak turns into symbols in the air, swirling into the same shape I once carved into others. I used to think I was cursed. Now I think I was chosen. Every artist wants to be remembered, to leave something behind. I just never realized that to leave something truly eternal, you have to give up everything that isn't. The mother whispers now, softly, almost kindly. They will call it salvation. They will call it art. Maybe she's right. Maybe this is what creation really is, the moment when you stop being the hand that draws, and become the thing that's drawn. If you find this recording, don't look for me. You'll see me everywhere. In the lines of the street. In the ink on your wrist. In the reflection that smiles when you don't. The masterpiece is complete. Recording ends.
Bonus Epilogue, The Observer's Note. Recovered document, Case File 91-13A. Filed under, The Holloway Incidents. Transcript fragment, 3:42 a.m. Location, former Evans Tattoo Studio, Holloway Street. Investigator, D. Hall. Status, containment failed. When we entered, the city was still. Not quiet still. Every sound seemed to wait for permission to exist. The studio door was already open. Inside, the air was thick, metallic, humming with low vibration, like the sound of a tattoo needle buried deep in bone. The walls were covered in something. At first, we thought it was graffiti, abstract black spirals scrawled across every inch of plaster. Then one of the junior officers touched it. The paint moved. He screamed before we could pull him back. The ink slid beneath his gloves, under his skin, curling into perfect symmetry. His veins turned black in seconds. When he looked up, his eyes were gone, replaced by spirals of ink that blinked. We left him there. On the floor, we found a recorder. Old model, cracked casing. The last message was still warm. Mara Evans's voice. I've heard that voice before during the first wave of disappearances. But this wasn't a human recording anymore. It pulsed. The sound of her words wasn't heard so much as felt, like a heartbeat underwater. We played it once. And once was too many. Every surface in the room began to vibrate. The symbols on the walls aligned, forming a circle that glowed faintly gold at the edges. In the center, the ink rose liquid, defying gravity, taking shape as a figure. Not quite human. Not quite anything else. It looked at me and smiled with her mouth. Then it spoke. The city remembers its skin. The light swallowed everything. Post-incident report. No physical remains of Detective Hall or the responding officers were recovered. The Holloway district has since been sealed under federal quarantine after multiple reports of spontaneous tattoo formation among civilians. At night, the skyline still glows faintly. From above, the streets appear to form a symbol, a spiral, twisting inward, centered precisely on the ruins of Mara Evans's studio. The media calls it the ink plague. The survivors call it the resurrection. No one calls it art. Not anymore.